I'm with Francis Head to unpack some of the highlights of the speech. Francis, good afternoon.
Thanks for having me.
Well, when Malusi Gigaba was walking to Parliament, there was a cloud of controversy. Many people having skepticism about him having been charged by the DA in court, and secondly, the EFF saying, no, he shouldn't present the budget speech. But this didn't look like the minister who was under pressure from any negativity.
No, he looked confident. It looked like government has thought through, has had time between the political machinations in this country to think carefully about what it was going to do. And certainly the market has reacted positively. You were talking about the rand. And I think perhaps because government really is in a tight spot, we know that. There's more money going out, more money being spent than money coming in. Even the projections we made about tax revenue coming in were wrong by 50 billion. So you can either target the rich, which that happened last year, increasing taxes right at the top end, a whole new tax bracket. That's one way, but there was a sense that the rich who can easily move their money, by the way, high income earners are already overly taxed. There's such a small base in this country. Then you can go for VAT, which affects everybody, but the fear was that it would mainly affect the poor because they spend a higher proportion of your salary. If you're a low earner, the bulk goes on essentials like food, housing. So that was the fear, but there's little room to maneuver. And he did increase VAT, but it was by 1%. He didn't target the rich. He explained that VAT increase, saying that the poor will be protected. Things like milk, things like bread, brown bread in particular, those are already zero rated. And yeah, it's been received well.
Let's talk about the buoyancy of the rand. I mean, this significant move, will it be sustained? Because it has been like this ever since there was this euphoria, ever since the election of Cyril Ramaphosa as ANC president, and after the sauna, even up until today.
So we were at 3-year highs last week, and we actually came down early this week, and that was mainly not because of local factors but because of the stronger dollar. And you could see the rand strengthening today was definitely in reaction to the speech. You saw the strengthening that you were talking about, close to 10 cents in the first few minutes as soon as he started speaking, because that's when the information comes out from everybody who's been in lockup and knows the details. And that strengthening, even though the dollar itself continues to strengthen. So whether it's sustainable or not, it depends on the cabinet reshuffle. It depends on what happens later in this year. Can we stave off a rating downgrade? Some people are positive now that we can, in fact, do that, but we'll only know in March, I believe. And then there are these global factors. The dollar does push and pull the rand all the time. We get relatively weaker to the dollar, relatively stronger. But what we can say is that looking at today's reaction, investors are taking this well, possibly because those high income earners have been left alone to some extent, and government is saying we are determined to bring in our spending because we are a country that's basically living on a maxed credit card, and government is saying we are determined to bring in our spending to bring down that debt we take on every year and slowly get it under control. And those projections are better than they were in October. So
economists have been saying things are looking up, given that from the revised economic growth of 0.7% to 1%, are we able to sustain that even though we don't have the minute and granular details of how the strategic turnaround of the economy is going to play out?
Well, look, so this is better than projected last year, from 0.7% to 1% expected for 2017. For this year, growth of 1.5%. So it's being cheered because it's better than was expected, but it's no great shakes. Look at sub-Saharan Africa, our peers, growing more than 3%. The global economy much better than we are. So we're still lagging behind. And this is just projections, but I guess if you're coming off terrible, gloomy expectations, then it's a welcome relief. And what you need is economic growth to bring in more tax revenue. You need more people employed so they can go and spend and have to spend a bit more on the VAT, but to add to government coffers. So government's main challenge this year was to increase taxes, but try and not constrain economic growth. The fact that those projections are going up is really good news.
Now, the talk was about how SARS failed to actually plug the hole of that 50.2 billion rand gap of revenue collection. This time around, with all the plans in place, do you think government is going to really make up for that shortfall?
So let's just look at some of the allocations. 57 more for fee-free higher education. That's money that government has to find over and above the 50 billion that you're talking about that wasn't brought in with revenue. They are going to make it up with a VAT increase. 1%, I'm trying to find the figure. I think that would bring in about 23 billion to the coffers. So you can see it goes some extent towards covering that plug, that gap of 50 billion. 23 billion through the VAT increase, and then government is going to change the tax brackets. Now remember, in previous years they've often spoken about the fiscal drag, so they would try and move people into tax brackets so you don't get a shock when you move from one tax bracket to another just because your wage went up with inflation. This time around, I think a lot of people are going to be paying a little bit more tax depending on where you are in those brackets. They're going to move things around, but in total that'll raise 36 billion. Then there's estate duty, sin taxes, things like that. So yes, add it up, it plugs that hole.
Okay, just a moment. We have to hear some reactions from our tweets now on how people reacted to the budget speech. Let's take a look. You increase social grants, then you increase VAT at the same time. And what did you achieve by so doing? That's Musa Gwaba. And the views of Jedre Bartman. I don't understand how the middle class income tax is increasing while the upper brackets are remaining the same. How's that fair? And Lebuhang Mahadi says, my impression is that this speech is recycled. We are talking about the same things every year. Change in figures, but all those things never reach the masses at ground level. These speeches are for the rich. Jason Judge says the upper and middle class employ a lot of South Africans, domestics and gardeners. A bigger tax burden for them means more unemployment. Can they not see that? Toriso Leteta says that this thing of looting state funds has led to an increase in cost of living as government needs additional funds. Already people are struggling, Mr. Finance. And those were some of your views. Well, we were just going to wrap up, and there's a number of issues that we need to talk about, Francis. But as we wrap up, you and I talked about that issue that really got me thinking. Page 9 of the budget speech, just for the sake of our viewers, if they didn't pick it up. He said, I'm going to quote the minister now, and I'm told that my time is actually up, Francis. Unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there just now. We're going to take a very quick break, and when we come back, we give you an update on other news that's been happening throughout the country.